So you know who I am. I am an economist.
Yes.
Who have actually studied systems ecology.
Yes, and has come to our biophysical economics talks and presented there.
So you can feel sorry for Charles because the picture is in Swedish, but he has an English version here. But he's heard this before, as I he asked me, if you come over to visit my conference, you have to give us a speech about what is the situation of bioeconomics, biophysical economics in Sweden.
Yeah.
And this is the best I can do.
Yep.
So I will do it for you. And we can discuss it from there. This is a picture of a Swedish economy, the best one I know. But it's actually pretty close to what you showed us from the US economy.
Yeah.
You started with just a few things, and then you added a lot of stuff. First energy, and then stuff.
I've got more categories of the same thing.
This is sort of summarizing it in one unity, and it's a kind of energy. It's the qualitative aspects of energy called exergy that is in the world of thermodynamics. It's the work that can be done with energy. And when you do work with energy, you lose its ability to do further work, so there are transmission losses. And this is the stuff you put in. This is the stuff you get out. And here is everything in your beautiful picture, exploitation, processing, doing consumer goods of it. So this is a bagel thing. You have to put in a lot of things to get the bagel out, so we can.
And don't forget the sun over here.
Eat. And just to get it through it, it's sunlight, it's forestry products, it's agricultural products, it's hydropower, it's iron ore, because concentrated iron ore has extra value. It's uranium, fossil fuels. The English version is an older one. So this is Sweden in the 70s, and this is Sweden in the 90s. So in your picture, nuclear power or uranium is not as big as we expanded.
You have 10 now.
Yeah, we had 12 even.
I was brought over to Sweden to shut down a nuclear plant when you had 4. The Ringhals station, is that still working? Oh, well.
Partly. When we are not repairing it, actually. And the fossil fuel volume here is much bigger. But that was before the OPEC 1 and OPEC 2 oil crisis. And here in the 90s, we have actually sort of cut down the oil. We only use it for transport, more or less now. We used it to warm our houses before. And on the other end, what we actually use it for, to fulfill our needs, the lowest Maslowian things, we have to eat, have to have shelter, but also, if we are lucky and can afford it, the stuff we really like to do, go to the movies or the opera and things. But it's paper and logs to build our houses with, eating food. We want light to see what we are doing and show pictures of a computer. It's mechanical work, pumping up the water so we can drink it through the tap. It's metal constructions like building cars. It's chemicals. It's transporting ourselves. It's only sort of actually getting from position A to B. Doesn't matter if we do it in a fancy car or a small car.
Not much.
No, and actually we are not sort of transporting ourselves so much.
Transporting metal.
But we're using perhaps more exclusive cars to do it. So, yeah. And it's having a nice temperature around us here and having temperature to industrial processing, perhaps cooking our food. So this is actually, and you can transform this to goods we buy in the stores.
It'd be fun.
And some of them you actually need to survive. So for people to act in this factory of the Swedish national economy, we have to eat. We have to have some sort of heating to not freeze to death. So this is sort of the stuff we actually use and need. And if I, being a politician, got the notion that we have to transform this economy into sustainability, I can't use the household firm picture you showed.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know what to do.
No.
But by actually looking at this picture, I actually get a few ideas. And one thing, and even if I sort of didn't take any climatic or environmental considerations, because if I could sort of put some, say, yeah, we have to solve a lot of environmental problems, and a lot of these things using here, putting in and using are causing problems. But even sort of so, just for being sort of efficient and make economical sense, I would use different inputs to get the outputs. If I was an engineer, I could optimize this thing. You should use the right energy carrier with the right exterior characteristics.
For the right job.
Right. You shouldn't heating something up to 20 degrees so it's cozy in here. You don't need electricity to do that.
I'm rather warm.
Yeah. You don't need oil. That's high exergy, very valuable energy carriers. And there is 4 pictures done by a researcher from Gothenburg, Göran Wall. So he has constructed this for 4 different years, in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And we are actually asking him to do it, one for 2010. That's the latest data we have. And maybe we want him to do a picture of the Swedish economy, but it could be in 2030, if we want it to be resource efficient, not so much fossil fuel, sort of meeting the climatic goals, and also a picture in 2050 being totally fossil free. And that means you have to make a lot of investments to change the inputs, being very much more efficient here. And then we have to discuss, perhaps, we want more of some of these, and we want perhaps the same amount of some of these, and maybe perhaps even we could live with less of a few things, if it's necessary. And maybe we could end up with a lot of opera, I don't know. But the thing is, if you want to, there are restrictions here on the input side, and there are restrictions here, but you can't impact the environment more than to meet the Swedish environmental goals, for example. This is a picture you can use to discuss the economy and how to transform it. And this is, to me, biophysical economics. Can you live with that?
I thought you were going to criticize me.
And the thing is that perhaps this is pretty easy, and you can discuss if this is sustainable or not. In my opinion, it's not, but I think you can transform this without using the uranium. And I think I acknowledge that it's much more difficult on a global scale, and especially for some countries. We are
well, there's a big problem I see, but it's probably beyond what we want to do today, but it's called maximum power in a competitive world. And that's probably not worth discussing today, but it's something we could talk about perhaps you and I later, or anybody who wishes. That in nature, there is not selection for efficiency, there's selection for power.
And nature actually uses the same principle in the first stage. If there is a forest fire and everything's burned down, the plants using the solar energy the most efficiently are the ones thriving.
Not most efficiently, most powerfully.
Not most powerfully, sorry. You're right.
So, I don't know whether Sweden can compete with China in the manufacture of electronics or whatever you're doing by being super efficient, but maybe you can. Even Howard Odum said, I think when energy gets tight, you've got to shift over on the efficiency curve. But I'm just saying that's a thing to talk about. Incidentally, does anybody follow opera? Is there an opera tomorrow night? What is it? Nobody knows. Can somebody find out?
Tomorrow?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about it later. But I didn't want to let it. Yeah. So, are we ready for?
Yeah, I wanted to give a Swedish perspective of showing you that economy, and to me, I believe in supply and demand, surely, and I believe that relative prices are very, very important. But I also realize that stuff and energy is what actually.
So you should take a look at the work I'm doing with Kerry King, that prices are determined by EROI. So I believe in prices too, but I think they're reflecting EROI. Yes?
Okay, I arrived very late, but since we cooperated so well yesterday, we'll do it today as well.
You've gotten taller.
Pardon?
You've gotten taller.
I've gotten taller. Yeah, I've been in a big conference. So the floor is open. One question I would pose to you, because you were rather critical about some of the attempts to put a value on ecosystem services and ecosystem functions. And we had Pavan Sukhdev here a few months ago explaining his work within TEEB, the economics of ecosystem services and biodiversity. And Carl Folke made that critical comment like you, and Pavan said, I hear what you say. My attempt has been to make something visible that has been...
What was that word?
Visible. Visible.
R?
Visible.
Visible.
Visible. That has been so far in economics invisible.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah. So if you don't like the idea to use sort of the German value, the human value prism to put a value, how would you avoid that these invisible functions are being eroded?
Well, partly by copying, partly by copying out, because my students are always angry with me because I don't do policy. And there's a reason for that, I've explained, I think, to somebody. But I don't do policy. I'm a scientist, and I prefer not do normative analysis. I leave that to other people. If you feel you must do it, then go ahead. But you know, I've been trying to talk to economists about this for 25 years. They're not interested in talking to me. And so I've long ago decided that what we need to do is train the young people and also to just go around them, because I think they're increasingly irrelevant. They're certainly destroying the economy of the United States. How are they doing? How are the economists doing in Sweden in the financial? Well, they're just bandits. And now with the people that should have been in jail when Obama was first president, he put in charge of the Treasury and so forth, in charge of the economic policy, and gave them all the money. The Icelanders, Icelanders, whoever they are, they did it right. They put those guys in jail because they were using. Well, they were using these theories, and in addition, they were crooks. And now we have people who use these theories who are additionally they're crooks and stealing money from average Americans, and we keep them in charge. That's a big failure of Obama.
But still, you are happy that he was elected.
Oh God, I'm relieved. No, Romney's vastly worse. Vastly.
Please, question here.
Vastly more ignorant. Obama at least is smart. And you know, our science advisor, John Holdred, was in my office a week before he went to Washington and started work as science advisor, and we were talking about energy return on investment and peak oil and all those things. And, you know, he's saying, yes, you know, we're just having a conversation like you and I might have about it. Yeah, that's the data, okay. And so, well, that could be a problem here, and, you know, this kind of thing. Well, but he and Secretary Chu, who I also met, they can't say it because it would destroy the stock market, which is doing pretty well doing that on its own this week. So.
Yes, I have two rather large questions.
Please introduce yourself.
Huh?
Please introduce yourself.
Okay. My name is Sofia Alroth. I'm an environmental economist, and I am head of the unit of environmental economics at the Swedish EPA.
Mm-hmm. I want to make sure, Sofia, I'm very glad you're here. I'm going to respect very much your questions, try to answer them, and please ask them one at a time.
Okay. So I start with the biggest one then. I'm very curious about how you can transform this biophysical economics into a working operational model that you can actually use for making economic policy.
Yes.
If I can just add to that, because I mean, like environmental economics is very much about including natural capital into this economic model, and also you have the externalities in there. So what is the difference then from, in your model from the ordinary environmental economics?
I think that it's a good question, and I don't think we can answer it to either your or my satisfaction, but we'll make a little progress perhaps. I don't think I have an argument with allowing the market to make prices, because that's not what we're concerned about. We're concerned with the basis of thinking about economics. And I see no reason that we couldn't have, at least for the moment, first of all, I don't think I can determine prices any better than the market, so I see no reason that I or any of my colleagues should impose prices. At one time, there was something called the physiocrats. There was a whole movement in the 1930s, and they had a pricing scheme based on energy that they called aerodollars, and it's how far you could fly on an airplane at the time. And all of this has been tried, and many people, Georgescu Rogan and Saudi and others, going way back, have had these concerns about economics. And I think that I don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. I don't think I would argue. I think it would be futile for me to try to do a better job than the market in setting immediate prices. We might want to do a little bit more about externalities, but there's two people, in now 200, but two people have been doing biophysical economics for 6 years, and we don't have this worked out very well. Maybe somebody can do it. So until we do, and I don't see why we should, then I'm perfectly happy to leave this up to the market mechanism. That's a kind of a cop-out, and you may perceive it that way and think less of me in biophysical economics accordingly, but I'm not going to try to pretend I can do a better job at the moment. I think if we thought about it, possibly you and I, if we thought about it, there might be some much better way. But, for example, that prices do not tell us about depletion. They have no, except as depletion affects EROI, as that apparently affects prices. We think we know that. So to a certain extent, we can leave it up to the market, because in fact, what we understand is happening in depletion is impacting prices of oil. Unsubsidized prices of oil and gas are quite nicely correlated with energy return on investment. So I would say I wouldn't bother to intervene with the market, because the market is, but I can give you further information as to how the market is working. I think I can, because energy return on investment is affecting prices, and I can give you the data, and I can give you the references of papers I've done with Kerry King, and Kerry has quite a bit more data now that shows the same thing.
But may I intervene by one question? You get it back, Sophia. But if I understand you correctly, we are very much dependent in our economy on high-quality energy and access to that, and at affordable prices. Now, if we are depleting these high-quality energy sources, like we have done, we know that the energy transition is not an easy one, and it's not a quick one.
No.
It takes decades. So how would you build into your whatever model or system something that helps us as early as possible in time to realize that here is a problem around the corner?
We can teach young people the truth about how economies work. That's where I'd start. That is probably insufficient for you. We don't offer prescription, we offer explanation. Partly because I avoid, and my friend Kent too, we're scientists. We're not policy people. Thank God.
No, but it's
much harder to be a policy person.
Yeah, but if you would like your thinking to be reflected in real life, you would have to talk to politicians.
I don't know if I care. I'm interested in the process of figuring these things out, whether or not it's I'm very interested in classical music. Half the classical composers died with no recognition at all, and yet we think so much of them today. They had on the news on Mozart's piano, you know, and Mozart died dead broke. And I will die, I think, quite unsung. It's fine with me. I've had a great life. I've had a lot of good fishing, listened to a lot of good opera, very happily married. So what do I care whether, I mean, I like to talk to you, and if people implement it, I'm flattered that you bring me to Sweden and want to hear what I have to say. I just kind of have fun figuring out how things work. So the implementation may be tremendously important for the future of the world, but I leave that to somebody else.
Okay.
That's a little bit flip, but it's not far from the truth.
Sophia.
Your second question. Do you feel at least I've adequately addressed your first question, if not given you an answer that's totally defensive of biophysics?
I'm a little bit disappointed. I was hoping getting here today and getting a good answer to the sort of the alchemist question of environmental economics. But
I don't have a zinger, but I will tell you, I think that biophysical processes that I understand, and probably you do not yet, until today, hopefully, that the work I do with Kerry King, I think that helps us explain prices much better.
Because I'm really sort of the alchemy of environmental economics. To bring that into conventional economics is also how to design policy instruments to address these scarcity questions.
I don't think it's possible.
And you have these scarcities, but you have to. I think that more than cost-benefit analysis, I think that the real challenge for economics is to design good policy instruments so that you really include all of these.
I hope you can. I hope I give you a little bit of information that helps you design better policy, but that's not what I do.
Okay. Okay. My next question then is the externalities. Because here you have the input, which is the energy, but it's very much dependent on which kind of energy, obviously, that you put in. And then you have these externalities that have a big influence in some cases on the ecosystems and so forth, and in other cases not. So how is this included in this model?
We have done this in some few cases. Remember, there's just a few of us for not so terribly many years. We've done this in a few cases. We think we understand some things, and I'll give you an example. When you're making ethanol from corn, which is a big deal in the U.S., and which is an energy more or less break-even process. In the process, corn or maize, whatever you call it over here, is a very erosive crop. And so you lose a lot of soil. So when you're done, you take a gallon of petroleum and make a liter of petroleum, make a liter of alcohol, or at least energy equivalent liter. And all you really have when you're done is the soil erosion. So how can we put the soil erosion into the energy equation? And so we are able to calculate how much additional fertilizer, which is a energy intensive stuff, how much additional energy we would have to divert from the economy in the future to compensate for that erosion. And so that's an energy cost that we can put into the denominator. Here's another example that we've done. When Hurricane Katrina came into southern Louisiana and into New Orleans and caused horrible damage, and we have more recent storms also in the U.S. But when Katrina came in, the hurricanes used to, and I have a picture of this somewhere, but that used to travel over salt marshes, Spartina marshes. And when it would do that, the vegetation would by friction would slow down the hurricane, and the hurricane would have less impact by the time it got to New Orleans. Now, all of that area in southern Louisiana has more than half has been destroyed, mostly in the process of drilling, getting oil and gas from the coast area in the past. And you look at southern Louisiana, it looks like Swiss cheese. It didn't used to. A lot of that is from oil and gas exploitation. So then if we know the energy cost of repairing for Katrina, which is some substantial portion of our remaining oil reserves, if we did it, you could calculate the additional environmental, the cost, or else the energy cost of the infrastructure lost because of the hurricane, and you could put that into energy units and go from there. I think you could, if you get together with some good people, not one person can figure this out, usually, and discuss it, I think you can do that quite well. And so I believe I've answered your question with, at least in principle, how it can be done, and occasionally has been done. And if any of you are interested in that question, I'd be delighted to talk to you.
I understand that tonight you haven't really touched upon, more than briefly, the energy return on investment kind of dimension. And maybe, I mean, I know we're running out of time, but maybe why don't you wrap up by giving, in a nutshell, a message on that? Because I think it's absolutely vital. Does anybody here
not know what I have to say about energy return on investment? Let's have another. Let's have another question. I mean, read this, you know, read this.
No, I mean, that's, to me...
Well, does anybody have a question about energy return on investment? How about that? But I'd rather hear from the audience. What's that? I guess you're in charge, huh?
No. Yeah, in a way, because I think, well, I happen to think that...
And you're bigger than me.
That's probably, for most citizens of this world, or of this country, this is probably the most important message.
Okay, would you like to ask me what declining ROI means in my mind?
Yeah, exactly.
We're screwed.
Pardon? We are screwed.
Yeah, eventually. Now, we have low ROI alternatives, and we can go back to living on that. Don't forget, Swedes lived here for a long time on solar energy, and so can we. Maybe not 8 million Swedes. And I think there'll be fossil fuel for some long time. I'm not somebody who thinks we're going to run out of oil. It's just going to slowly decline, and it'll be ever more costly. And I think, well, my cheese slicer model, which, did I put that in here? I think it's in here. The cheese slicer model is, I don't think I did. Well, anyway, it's in my book, and if you want to know about it. So I think it means we're going to be poorer. Now, we can be poorer gracefully, or we can try to be richer and richer in a way that nature will not allow us. Or a third alternative is I'm completely wrong. But I think that it would be much better to understand these things, to do your own analysis for Sweden. Be happy to help you think about it. And my guess is that, well, I have no children. I have no children, at least to my knowledge. Conceivably one in Sweden, but we won't talk about that. There's the energy return on investment. Where did I get off in here? I read Hubbard, M. King Hubbard, in 1969 when I was, I don't know, 26 or something, and I decided not to have children. So Sweden, I thought was 8 million. I guess now it's 9 million. Well, that's not a path to sustainability. It's everything you might think you're doing with your Sustainability Institute probably is irrelevant as long as the Swedish population is increasing. And if you don't talk about population, then you're not doing anything.
Now we kicked off 2 more questions and then we'll close.
Yes, I wonder if you have an idea about the sequence of things that might happen to society. For instance, regarding production of food?
Well, I thought I knew, but I think I don't. Well, food is very energy intensive all around the world. Of the world's 7 point whatever billion people now, my guess is that 6+ billion are being kept alive on fossil fuels. And fertilizers are critical. We were talking about that, I think, at lunch, about fertilizers, the importance of fertilizer. Could we go back to a simpler way of the Amish? Can we live that way? Well, they use fertilizers. And can you use organic fertilizers? Well, not for 9 million Swedes, and so forth. So I thought we were going to be phosphorus limited. Phosphorus basically comes from only 2 places in the world. I'm dealing with this a lot. I'm trying to model agricultural productivity in Argentina. That's one of my very interesting projects now, because it's such a rich, the Pampas is so rich and it's getting so industrialized, and the consequences are often horrible.
You're working with that now?
Yes, I'm modeling it. No, the model's in that computer. So and I work with many good agronomists in Argentina, so I think I've got some pretty good data. That's always what I need is data. And so I thought phosphorus would be limiting, and they're really scared about it in Argentina because they have no phosphorus at all. And they could invade Chile and get their guano, but that's about it. And so, and they're not going to do that. And so it comes from Morocco in Florida. In Florida, they basically mined all the phosphorus out of the land of Florida, getting close to that, and now they're going offshore into the Gulf of Mexico. And I don't know how much there is and how long that'll last. The other place in the world that has phosphorus is Morocco. Actually, Western Sahara, but that region. And so Morocco, I had a colleague, Rembrandt Compler, tell me that they've got a new slurry pipeline bringing rock with 40%, 20 to 40% phosphorus from Morocco to the Mediterranean, and this will meet the world's phosphorus needs indefinitely. So that brings us down to nitrogen fertilizer. Nitrogen fertilizer, you know, NPK, that's the stuff you need. Nitrogen fertilizer is made with energy, lots of energy from the air, because it's nitrogen in the air with the Haber process. The Haber process is why we're sitting here and not doing what my father did when he was young, which is carry cow manure out to the fields. And so because of the Haber process, that's ultimately energy limited and natural gas limited. We're going to have natural gas abundantly for several decades. So maybe the real energy limits are going to come with traction and I think with transport. So I don't quite, and they're likely to become, when the price of oil goes up and the price of gas goes up, then fertilizer becomes unaffordable for the world's poor, for Egyptians and for people in the Middle East and so forth, and it exacerbates the conflicts that are there. Okay, let me tell you how I think it's going to play out. I don't think it's going to play out exactly as we can predict, because I think what's happening is we're making a world, as I talked about this afternoon, where young males don't have anything to do. Their role has been replaced with machinery, with fossil fuels still cheaper than labor to do most things, agriculture, for example. So we have a world full of young males, full of testosterone and nothing to do. And my guess is that we're seeing this Arab Spring as explosions, partly with what they talk about in the newspapers and partly due to the fact that we no longer are, they don't have anything to do. And so, you know, let's go have a riot, and with legitimate grievances and far worse than that. And how can there be anything for people to do where the population growth rate is 5% a year like in Pakistan? So my guess is how it's going to play out is going to be through civil unrest. and often aimed at Americans, but that's just convenient. Well, not that they don't have good reason, but and I think that this will go on, and there'll be hot spots, Palestine, Israeli border, and Syria is happening right now. I mean, these are all about people who don't have resources, don't have economic possibility because their country doesn't have the resources to generate wealth, or if it does have resources, labor productivity has made the people who would want jobs irrelevant. Kenneth Watt wrote about this long ago, the coming glut of labor. And so, and young people are justifiably angry. And we're not solving the problem with economic development, because the economic development that we do is putting people out of work. And you want to keep your young males occupied. How's that? Sexist statement.
Thank you. I saw that you had something. Is it very? Is it a new question or?
Yeah, you mentioned circular economy. Is that a path forward, you think?
Is that what?
Circular economy.
Yeah. You mean firms and households?
For the whole.
No, for materials and.
Material flows.
Well, you can recycle some of your materials, but you can't recycle energy.
Yeah, you can share carpooling. When you share a car, then you don't have to manufacture 10 cars.
Yes, of course. Well, I see many things in Sweden that look very good, but I still understand, and Sweden's a rich country, and I understand your energy intensity is 70% energy used per dollar or kroner, compared to the U.S. is 70% of the U.S. Sweden is a very heavily industrialized country, no matter how good you want to feel about your bicycles and buses and so forth. It's about heavy industry, and it's about ripping iron out of the earth and all this stuff, and so, okay, now given that, and given your very high standard of living, which we all enjoy, then Sweden does many things well. But don't fool yourself.
But I mean, globally, it's a circular economy.
I don't like, what does the word circular mean, and how do you use it? What does that mean?
You don't.
What? Oh, what do you mean circular economy? Sorry.
Well, you circle materials and also sharing. You don't own things that you don't need all the time, like cars and washing machines, and then you save energy. But of course, you need energy to circulate. But you don't need to extract as much raw materials when you get it.
You reuse and recycle.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I don't like to talk politics, but if, as a citizen, I'm political, and I'm probably to the left of most Swedes. And I think what we do in our country and yours, in how we share the pie, you understand this, the economic pie used to grow bigger, and it's not growing bigger, at least in the U.S. anymore. And so the question comes, how do we cut the pie? And the wealthy are getting a bigger and bigger slice, and if the pie is getting smaller now. But then if we say, well, I think Sweden should share its wealth with Uganda, 50-50. I'm running for the Swedish Prime Minister. Will you vote for me?
No, I would. You
would, yes.
Of course.
Well, if the Ugandas pay for their share, then.
But you're certainly not going to be president of the United States running on that platform. So anyway, all I can tell you is go for it. Do the best you can. And I hope you would understand these larger perspectives, and I would hope that you would have teachers, or you would become a teacher that you could teach and have these diagrams for Sweden and teach young Swedes where the energy is used in Sweden and who uses it, and then you ask some social questions about distribution of wealth. I think you've got some pretty wealthy people in Sweden too, right? Yeah. So I don't know if this is a good answer to your question, but I try.
Now last question, Bo.
It's not a question.
It's a comment.
It's a compliment.
Oh!
I think what is really a very important message to this country is your definition of your role as a scientist, distinctly separated from a role as a lobbyist or promoter or a politician. This is a rather small society where we have a lot of talent, but the talent is not abundant, if I may. So that makes people aligned with special interests. So the first question you have to ask when you read an article or something, you know, who owns you?
Yes.
Yeah. And then you can say, what did she have to say, or what did he have to say? Now, I think this is a deep cultural problem, which also infects our institutions. There are very few places to go where you can feel safe from an integrity point of view. This is not just a Swedish phenomenon, of course.
Of course.
But your statement was very important and should be listened to very carefully. So why don't you write an article in Svenska Dagbladet about?
Would you like to write it with me?
Absolutely. I would be very happy to do that.
What's your name?
And I... Very good. Will do.
Now, not till I'm done with my book proofs, please. I got 2 more book proofs to go. But within within a month or so, I'll have time.
So,
what's your name, please?
Wijkman.
Do you have a card? Do I have your card?
we'll provide you with everything.
Here's mine.
So, dear friends,
Thank you for the compliment.
Charles, this was your 3rd lecture in I don't know how many hours. Thanks a lot. I know that many people, and I've had a few phone calls from last night, have been very, very happy, and much of what you were saying was sort of an eye-opener. I only listened to about half tonight, but I think we've had a very interesting discussion, and
we want to put my PowerPoints and I suppose all this on your site. Do you all know how to access their site?
yeah.
And please, you may use my, not abuse please, but you may use my slides for whatever you wish. If you do anything abusive or if you publish it, you might check with me first.
But there is one conclusion to be drawn, namely, we cannot expect you from being the one who prescribe exactly how to implement your thinking into societal life or into society. So some of us have to take that ball and run with it. Since Sophia is here and you have a very important position in one of the agencies that is entrusted with guiding us on all these issues, I hope that you will be one of them. And if you want some help, I think there are a few here. So once again, many thanks. And we hope that you are successful with your proofreading. And we're looking forward to more books from you. Thank you very much. And Eva has a token of appreciation.
Yeah.
Another piece of chocolate?
I also want to say thank you. I'm so happy that I asked you to come over and that we met 12 years ago.
You know, we almost didn't meet. I'm almost not, 5 seconds difference when she was putting her poster away and I wouldn't be here. Because she was putting her poster away and I said, whoa, wait a minute, that looks really interesting. Who are you?
Yeah, that's the way it started. In Italy. And
in Italy, yeah, here we are in Sweden.
In Stockholm.
Yes.
And for your trip home, this might make you relax from
Can I give these to my wife?
I think it's for you. Okay, thank you, and thanks to all of you for coming here and listening and sharing this, and see you again soon. Thank you.